So we can go ahead and get started. Cheers, everyone. I'm having some kind of strange ginger cocktail.
Irish mule from a can.
Hey, it was a donation. I'm not going to complain.
Right?
So for those of you who have your own paint, I want to let you know that I gave out, when I took deliveries out today, 2 different blues. There's the sort of the blue that I usually use in the classes. It's the more ocean blue color. And then there's a darker, more ultramarine blue that's a little more purple. You do not need to have both, but if you have a lighter blue and a darker blue, you know, go ahead and hand yourself one of those. What basically is going to happen here is we're going to work our water situation. And some of these darker blues are just kind of nice to have in the shadow of our lily pads. So impressionism, we don't use any black. So, because it just gets out of control and it loses the flavor. So, also, those of you who got new brushes, the medium-sized brush is a little smaller than the brush that we've been using for the class, but it works well, especially with this kind of painting on it. But the flat brushes, they're always just a little bit stiff and kind of stuck together when they're brand new. So these are really awesome. I picked these up from Jerry's Artorama, and they have a nice long plastic handle. They got a little weight to them that the older ones just don't really have. So okie dokie. So this one is going to be really fun. Lots of really soft, pretty colors. Very summer. Very, you're not going to the Cleveland Botanical Gardens this year. That's what I wanted to do this weekend, and nope. So I'll be at West Branch hanging out at the dog park in case anybody wants to come visit. So we're going to start with some blues, and we're going to think about a shape for our pond. Everyone's pond can be different. The last time I did this, feels like forever ago, was at Danny Boy's in Talmadge, and a couple of people chose to make more of a river instead of a pond, and that was really cool too. Also, this is shape optional. This painting will work the same way if you want long or tall, so give that a little bit of thought. And like we usually do, start with a big brush, and they all have bed head now because they're never getting used, so give it a little dip in your water glass and shake it out.
I like getting used.
Right? And we're just going to kind of think about this blue area. We'll start kind of work our way from the bottom up to the top and do that famous double dip. Get some white on that paintbrush. And I'm going to use the lighter blue to start. So a lot of white, little blue. You'll be able to determine what you actually do and don't. Well, here, let's just do it this way. All right, for those of you who aren't aware of my left hand usage, I'm just going to kind of start at the bottom and sort of look to see what some of these water tones might look like for you. If you're feeling frisky or you want to plan ahead a little bit, you can say maybe your water will come up a little to here, and think about this lower area kind of being your spot. Mostly for our water, we're going to think about these horizontal streaks that are going to move back and forth across the canvas. You can have some wiggles. You can do some small chops. Think about what you want your impressionist water to look like. Remember that you're going to lose a lot of your blue. We're going to be layering colors today. But keep it as horizontal as you can, because our grasses are all going to be vertical. And that will help our viewer to differentiate between the objects, because this is a big puddle of crazy color. So we'll start that. If you guys want to see what the darker blue and some white looks like, if you're nervous to try, this is going to be your more purple, softer colors in here too. Lots of white on this one. And you know, don't be afraid to use some water as well to kind of mush your paints together, either on your plate or on your canvas. And I'm going to fill my water in, and I think I'm going to add some more of that purpley blue. I think that looks pretty fun for now, for a start. question. If you want to add some extra whites and light blues all the way in the back and get a little darker towards the bottom, that does increase the illusion of atmospheric distance. Oh, shoo, I
God
promise
bless you.
I don't have the COVID.
6 feet, right?
Right, 6 feet, 6 feet. So, and as always, with anything like this that we do, that's going to have two different shapes or two different textures, let your blue be a little taller and a little bit than you think you need. Because we're going to come down and cut into it with our greens and yellows. Also, before I forget, don't miss out those edges with this nice bright blue you got. Brush cleaning optional. I stuck my brush back in my water cup, so I've a little, but not too much. We want to take a look at some of these grassy areas. All of these big textures that I have are all going to be from our final step. We're going to be adding like flowers and these big chunky textures. Show you a really cool trick to get that palette knife look. But we're just going to think about just some light yellow and white and green streaks lifting up. This is very pale, very chill. So if you already have a little blue left on your brush, no problem. I actually like to mix, I should show you what I'm doing. Otherwise you guys can't see it from over there. I actually like to mix some yellow and white together for this, just so that I can see what I'm working with. And I'll add a little of my blue. I put a bright green in here as well, so you guys will have some variety. The yellow and green together will make a really, really funky pea green color that I like a lot. And that's what I ended up using for my streaks. But we're gonna work our way kind of up and down. They can bump in, and you can let your brush strokes be really obvious here, where they bump into your water textures. The idea here in Impressionism was someone invented a camera, and they liberated artists from ever having to do really specific looking paintings ever again. They said, oh, well, now we can paint however we want because we got these guys with cameras. They're going to go ahead and make photographs of things, and we can paint how we choose. So Impressionism was a big artist liberation movement. Free the artists from the demands of their patrons for only portraiture and very realistic art, and allow them to think about things like color and texture. One of the other things that you see in the Impressionist movement is the first notice that we take of artists as personalities. So it stops being portraits or whatever, and you start being, Claude Monet, the guy that does the water lilies. They make a new name for themselves. So don't be afraid to bump down into your water a little bit. I think I'm going to try some of that green and yellow together. Really nice bright colors in here. You can turn your brush to the side as well, and you'll have some smaller streaks. And remember, we're hazy and atmospheric. We have a lot of foggy, smoky, soft colors happening here. So we're just going to start building this background area where all of our tall grasses will be. Here. If you throw a little bit of blue in there, you can get some of these nice darker greens as well, some of that Kentucky bluegrass color. edges too on the green. Sides and top if you can reach it or turn it sideways. This one's really nice because if you paint your edges, it'll be all done and dry just in the background steps. Because we're doing all this big background work first. And as we go, we're going to get more specific. We're going to add more colors and more details. So I want to take just a second to talk about lily pad shape. So these are really, if you get really close, these are really inarticulate. So they're just big blobs. You can draw a potato that looks kind of bad. You should have no problem with these. If it's helpful for you to use your small brush to do like an outline shape, you can use the small brush. I'm just going to go ahead and use the medium brush. And we use some of the same greens, yellows and whites that we've been using for our grassy area. Kind of a similar plants. Grab just a little bit of that here. And they're basically kind of a potato shape. And then they have a little divot. So you want to have maybe 5 or 6. I like to have some larger ones up front for some variety. So this potato is just gonna, swamp potato is gonna go right off the side there. Get some
Swamp
I
potato.
have a question.
Yeah, fire away.
Of course. The color you're using, what are you
I am
doing there?
using some of the same leftovers that I had on my plate from my grass.
Okay,
So it's
perfect.
some of the yellow and white and a little bit of the standard grass green that I left.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to have a variety of greens for everyone. So, and then you can have some that are just ovals as well. So I think maybe 6 or 7 of these might be kind of nice. And they really don't have to be, you can even just have a smush for some of them. You want to get frisky, you can take a little blue and green together and add some other greens in there as you fill those in. But these are going to be filled in, again, real streaky. Seeing a lot of those brush strokes, a lot of texture. And they can be a variety of different, we're going to be adding some yellows and oranges, but they could be a variety of different greens for now. Just while we get sort of started on here. You guys should have 2 blues and a green and a yellow to make all the blue and green colors that your hearts desire. A lot of really great bright colors involved in our lily pads.
I like the frisky. Frisky works.
Frisky works. I like a lot of texture in these. That was something that the impressionists really wanted people to see, was the hand of the artist. So after, you know, centuries of trying to hide the fact that it was a painting, it was suddenly allowed to be a painting again. And gives a different perspective. I get some really bright green in here too. So if you're feeling good about your lily pad situation, I want you to think about some of the water underneath the lily pads and how you may have some shadows underneath them. And I've done those with some just darker greens and blues. Don't think about these tall grasses yet. Remember, that's going to be kind of in our last stage. But make yourself some dark blue. So you can use your darker, more ultramarine blue and a little bit of green maybe. And kind of do a little swipe, and I'll show you on mine. Underneath some of these, and see how it changes how it changes your lily pad. It's going to make it so a little blue and a little bit of green there. And if you just kind of stretch that out, I might have a little too much paint on my brush, but I'm going to spread it out a little bit over a couple of these lily pads. See what kind of interesting colors I can get. Take a little bit of my brighter blue. Just see what that does to sort of ground them in that water. We're going to be adding a lot more globs of color into the water. You can see I'm stretching out my dark blue a little bit into a few more places. Really making this water a little bit more choppy. Short little stubby puddles of some different colors. We're going to add some yellow and some pink and some orange as well. Just kind of think about some of these darker areas and what some of those darker greens might look like in a few places, especially on the underside of the lily pad. It doesn't have to follow the shape perfectly. So you can see how this one just kind of goes off to the side here a little bit. You know, it starts to give them some weight. You know, these things have really, really long roots that go way down into the water. And that's some tough life right there. The Buddhists have a lot of stories about lotus flowers and analogies about lifting yourself out of the muck and achieving the sunlight. There's a moral in there somewhere, but be damned if I know what it is. I somehow got a red fingerprint on here. It's okay. I'll cover that up later with some pink. No one will know. Let me get a little bit of this that white action on a couple of these too. Yeah. So, okay. So to make this marigold color, just grab the original real quick. You notice I have some of this like orange, and if you get really, really close, you can see it looks really bizarre in some of these places where it bumps into the greens, but that's okay because we want to have some of these cool colors in here. They're going to be a little accidental, so you're going to have to go with the flow. Type A personalities, this may be slightly a struggle for you, but
It's a good thing I'm not painting.
You'll get through it. Oh yeah, well you were not painting and now you're happy you're not painting. I have a little tiny corner of red on my brush and I'm gonna mix it just at the edge of my yellow. Tiny, tiny bit. See how fast I can, see how quickly it's gonna turn orange. You could just stick with your whites or your yellow and your red here. Try not to get any white in this. So this is kind of what you're aiming for. Kind of a sherbet-y color, I guess. And this is the cool, important, my lily pad looks really round brush stroke. Do one here and make it kind of flat. So straight lines. Think about these brush strokes too. Don't blend it. Think about it like you're just trying to put peanut butter on a piece of bread and you don't want to break the bread. Just set it on there. Something else that's really cool that you can do is set a couple of puddles of sunshine down on your water. You don't need too much of this color, but it's kind of a cool, I want a little sunshine here. You can add it a little to this shoreline area. But notice too, I'm not getting a lot of paint. Just taking a little scribble. You can even swish it in once it's a little bit dry. So while I'm here thinking about some of these sunshines, I've wiped my brush off a little bit. And I might like some more of this ultramarine kind of purpley blue. I could see it in a couple places, but I lost a lot of my cool blue tones when I came in here and went berserky with my greens. Promise. Shake your hands and your brains out. We are going to do our lotus flowers, our lily flowers in 2 steps. We're going to do them with white, and then we're going to let the white dry, and we're going to add pink over top. This will give you more control over how bright your pink is, if you want really super bright pink, or if you want to do some pink and white together. I have a variety on the original. So this will give you a chance to place your flowers with the white and then have a nice bright base to work from. But you all know, paint's very forgiving as long as you give it time to rest. So we will do that. Are you feeling good about your, add some yellow, add some more blue, do some scribbling, kind of fill your water and lily pad area out just a bit. Give your brush a rinse. Got thumbs up coming from everybody? And we're gonna think about placing your water lilies. Now the lilies are really cool, but there's not as many of them as we think. We think of these paintings as being called water lily paintings. They're really pond and grass and lily pad paintings. So
Zen.
yeah, they're kind of zen. I'm gonna do 4 or 5. I want to show the original real quick. Back here, they don't even have any lily pads underneath them. They're just hanging out. You don't even have to see that back there. And these couple that are here in the middle. So I'm going to try to keep this sort of same pattern. I don't want to put a water lily on every single lily pad. I want to keep it surprising. So while I'm showing you guys how to do the water lily, think about maybe how many you want to have. 5, 6. I tend to like odd numbers. So when I plan things, I usually do odd numbers. I think I have 6. Yeah, I'm at 6 here now, which is a weird combo for me. So with a nice, clean, medium-sized brush, I'm gonna get some white paint. Kind of smush the brush flat into your paint so that you have kind of an edge. All right, I'm gonna start here. Be a good spot. And start with a U shape, kind of a wide smile. Make a shape down the center and just kind of gonna brush away a little bit from the centers. I like them to be a little taller in the middle and a little wider at the sides. You see what I've done? I just used my U shape. It's almost like a pom-pom. You ever made a pom-pom? So here's my kind of U shape. I can now find my center. And then I'm going to do one up here. The little ones don't even really have to be very specific. You're going to do a couple little teeny tiny guys. They can just be almost like a puddle. So you can see I'm kind of bouncing the brush. Just a little squish. Maybe I can, okay, so my U shape. Now I'm going to come back. I'm going to make my one down here a little bit bigger. It's up in the front, so it wants to look big and extra fluffy. Adding a little paint to this one to make it a little bit brighter. So some of my water lilies I did all pink, and some I just did like a few little lines of pink. So, you know, they tend to be mostly white and pink. I have seen a couple purple ones. I've never seen a yellow one, but I suppose if you wanted a yellow one, you could have a yellow one.
You do what you want.
Yeah, you do you. So think about, you know, what you might want to do with that. We're not going to be articulating any petals. We're not going to draw any petals. Anything that looks like it might be a petal here is just, you can see the shape the brush is making, just a squish. So I'm going to make a little pink and I'm going to squish a couple of mine so you can see, and then you can squish a couple of yours. And pink, everyone knows, is super light red. I know you're all on the page with that. So I'm going to take a little bit of red and just add it to a little corner of my white here. I'm just going to go for kind of a middle of the road, middle pink. Remember, it's easier to cover a lighter pink up with a brighter one if you want a brighter color than it is to try to hide a bright color after you've already put a dark one down. So I'm just kind of doing a couple places.
I literally need a camera instead of a computer.
Use a little filled in here. And then this guy. So look, I'm just kind of dabbing a little bit. I'm going over top of my white in some places, and then over top of my green in a couple of other places. Hardly using really any paint here. I do want a little bit of a brighter pink as well, so I'm gonna add some red to my pink. That was a little too much red. Just in a couple places. So keep it a little, if you go overboard, like I feel like a couple of these are maybe a little too full. And put some of your white back on top. Lighten your paint up. You kind of stick with these fluffy shapes. We like them fluffy flowers. So another thing that's kind of fun, and I feel like maybe that was a little bit light, you can kind of get a little bit of your brighter pink. And again, just with that really dry, loose technique, just like we were doing with our water.
Add a little flower reflection.
Little flower reflections. Doesn't have to be directly. Think about how water moves, you know, and how light reflects. Impressionists were really interested in the reflection of light. I don't know if you guys can hear the swishing. I'm going to take some of my paint off my brush. Get that scribbling sound good.
I love that sound.
That's how you know you're smashing that brush. And I feel like just a tiny little bit more of the orange in a couple places in the water as well. My water's missing just a little bit here. So we're gonna add some to our grasses once we're done with this, but I'll give you guys some time to muck around with your flowers, kind of That's a little more interesting. One of the things that I struggle with, that I know everybody who paints struggles with, is ending up with everything looking the same size or the same shape. So I try to work a little on one side and then move over to another side, so I don't end up doing all a straight line all in a row.
So
Yeah, I felt like I didn't have a lot of interesting, now that my water has so much activity, and I wanted to add a couple more things into the grass. So notice I have some of the blue here in the grass, so I kind of mimicked that through here. Took the chance to smush this edge out. My edge was getting a little bit straight, so make it round and soft again. We back. This pond is more flat. This one is a little more of a gully back there. All right. So remember I told you guys we had the yellow and that sort of standard green together, that it was gonna make a really crazy color.
kind of like your hair.
Kind of like my hair. Actually, it's gonna be more yellow, more pea green than my hair. This is the paint off the brush.
Very close.
Pretty darn close. Yeah. Dave was like, what color are you going to dye your hair? Because my blue was all washed out. And I said, green. He goes, what kind of green? I said, Crayola crayon. And he's like, oh, I know exactly what color that is.
Makes sense to me.
So we want to get a puddle of this yellow and green together. Look at how just lime pea colored this is. The reason we need a puddle is we're not going to be using the brush end of our brush. We're going to be using the stick end of our brush. So you want to have a puddle that
So
you can scoop out of. Yeah. And it's a little harder to stir with the end. But we'll get that puppy nice and loaded up, get a nice good booger on there. And then starting at the bottom, we're going to kind of make a puddle and scrape upward. Some of this is going to want to have a little bit more yellow in it. Some of it's going to want to have a little more green. You can zigzag up and down. But this is what the impressionists would have used like a palette knife for, or a stick, piece of cardboard. I'll show you guys how it looks down here in the. It's a little bit weird, but this is that really awesome, and you can just do little streaks, big streaks, and it's a little, you'll have a nice satisfying scraping noise.
Probably gonna need to scoop more paint than you're used to on the brush end though.
Yeah, you want to get a nice good glob on there. Sometimes I just do spriggles that, you know, work my way up and down. Can twist the brush around to get a little bit more. But that's where all of these interesting textures come from. And you can see that they're, move over onto this side here. You come down into your water. You can break up that space a little bit. So I'm actually kind of scraping it off the brush and sort of twisting the brush a little bit, rolling it in my hand to kind of get some more coverage. But we'll add some of these anywhere you choose. I like to, you know, you sometimes see these things are just sticking up for no reason out of the water. I'm gonna make a really dense patch right here.
Because you know, we're random like that.
Well, it's nice to stay random. If you feel like it's too much, you can touch it with your hand a little bit. Just wipe it on your pants when you're done. No, I'm kidding. Use your paper towels. Don't ruin your pants on my account. But yeah, sometimes. So everyone's green is going to vary a little bit. We want to stick with something really bright though, really glaringly green. New and fresh. These things have just risen up out of the water and they're brand new growths. You can even bump into a flower if you want. And for some of you, this will solve perspective issues because you can have some extra up around the front. For others of you, this will help. You can smush it out a little bit too with your hand. And for some of you, this will help to just integrate the background where the grass is and the foreground where the flowers and the waters are. But this is a really fun. So again, just twisting. They don't even have to be straight because in the end, it's just another texture in a painting that's full of different kinds of textures.